Your dream of running a cafe, part 2. What we're going to cover now are other elements that will stuff you up beautifully if you want to run a cafe successfully. Let's look at a few of them. First one, rent. You'd be amazed what that's going to do. You need to make sure that your rent is affordable. I find often that people think, oh, look, it's $50,000 a year, that'll be fine. That is $1,000 a week you have to find. How many coffees is that? And if you don't have any people in the door, how are you going to afford it? Do you have the money in the bank ready to finance that rent? Because I promise you, you don't get that rent right, you're out. In commercial leasing, of which I might add, please make sure you do get a lease, you will find that there isn't quite the safety net that you're familiar with residential rentals. You don't pay your rent, don't be surprised that you turn up and find yourself locked out. Everything's gone, okay? It is a big deal. So A, pay your rent, and B, make sure it's affordable. And please, the less rent you can pay in those first 2 years particularly, to get yourself set up with a cash flow that's affordable and you can see what you can do, the better off you'll be. Don't underestimate those deals where they say the first month or 6 months is a low rate or free. It really is something that will really support you, because at the end of the day you need to establish that the amount of money that you can make in that place actually has enough left over for you to be able to pay rent. The second thing is that I normally like to push is please try and avoid doing stuff on credit. I do understand that suppliers will offer you the deals and you'll sign the forms and you'll guarantee this and you'll guarantee that, and you'll have 30 days on the meat and 30 days on the vegetables, or 7 days, whatever it might be. I would recommend, especially when you're starting yourself off, avoid as much as possible of doing this or minimize it, because you don't know how much you're going to need. You're going to make mistakes. And what normally happens is that these accounts tend to kind of grow and they can get out of hand very quickly. Within 1 or 2 months, you can find yourself owing $15,000. Okay? You can't dig yourself out very well if you don't have great sales. And you don't know necessarily why you do or don't have great sales when you start. So that's something else that you need to keep in mind. The other thing that I like to look at is the fact that you have to budget and expect there will be some days you don't have customers. Okay? I actually find that there's this thing with customers where if you have a cold snap, like the cold front comes, boom, we go from 25 degrees down to 15. Okay, that day, you'll find almost no people will be on the streets. Okay? It is something that when you know to look for it, you can't not see it. 2 or 3 days later, your customers are back. It's like they kind of hit and then they come back over time. Okay? Same with a heat wave. Boom, they're gone. And then a day or so later, they'll come back out of hiding and they'll be back to their normal buying behaviour. So you need to have something in place for that. And those kind of things you need to be aware of, because, for instance, if you've budgeted for a couple of staff on and you've got 3 customers all day, you probably want a flexibility there to be able to send one of those staff home at least, don't you think? Or have something they can do whilst they're there. That is one of the reasons that a lot of cafes do catering, because it allows them to have an income flow that might not be conducive to just walk-ins and knowing that the weather may or may not do things, because catering tends to be more like they've made a booking, they've paid their deposit, they will then, you deliver your product. So that is something else that you need to be budgeting for and accept, because it's not a matter of just open the door and they walk in. It doesn't work like that at all, and the weather will be a fickle determinant of just who turns up as well. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, a lot of people miss this, they kind of get so busy they just go, oh no, it doesn't matter. You know how they talk about when they say, you look after the cents, the dollars take care of themselves? Very much the deal here. When you start organising buying your meat and your lettuce and your tomatoes and your coffee beans and your milk, Okay, 10 cents per litre or per kilo actually starts to make a difference. If you are buying 100 kilos or something, or 100 litres a week, and 10 cents is suddenly worth a fair bit of dough. Over a year, it's worth even more. And a lot of your profit comes from those little small points. So the first thing you really need to do is make sure that you really establish good base prices for the things that you buy the most. Okay, develop a great relationship with your suppliers where you can. I have seen people do a lot of shop arounds and do what they can for that. I've seen other people work more in the relationship and say, look, if I have one supplier and they do 3 things, that saves me having to deal with 3 other people. I've saved time, and potentially I've probably saved money as well. So you need to look at those things as well to make sure that you get this just right. Once you've done that, there's another element you need to be careful of as well that I've also seen people fail. When you often buy things, people will deliver. And believe me, that's a fantastic thing that they will deliver for you. But when it arrives, you must process it. Do not underestimate that, because mistakes happen and you'd be amazed how much that will cost you. Okay, so the first thing you've got to do is make sure that what you ordered turned up. Secondly, what is on the invoice is actually in the box. Thirdly, the products that arrived are of suitable and usable quality. Sometimes you can get a few rotten things in there and they didn't realise, and well, you're copying it and you can't use the product. And the other thing is that you need to check the actual prices that they've charged you. You may have negotiated a deal that's, 75 cents a litre for milk. You need to check the invoice, is it 75? Or did they forget and make it 89? Okay, these things you need to check off. And you must sign off the invoice with your name and date so that you can trace this. Because if someone made a mistake, you need to be able to prove that you received it or didn't receive it. You need to be able to also establish who checked what, did they miss something, and make sure that your controls are nice and strong. Don't underestimate just how much money this saves and how much it potentially can make you. The other thing that I'd like to comment on as well is point of difference. It's more of a marketing issue, but don't underestimate it. I find cafe owners have a tendency to either go, look, we're just going to make sandwiches and coffee, we're not going to do anything very exciting, we think there's a need. That's great. But if you're in an out-of-the-way place, you're going to need to be a bit better than that. You're going to have to create yourself a vision of being a destination, so that people go, oh my goodness, you have got to try what they have made. This milkshake they do is crazy. It's got all this stuff on it, and you can only get it from them. You are going to have to travel the next extra 10 kilometres to get there. And people will do that if they feel there's value. They will do that if they know that there is something that you have that no one else has. Okay, so don't underestimate the goodwill that having a point of difference will buy you. Because at the end of the day, if you're replaceable, if you sell sandwiches and coffee and they can get sandwiches and coffee in 3 different places within 25 metres, then if you're too busy that day, they'll just walk to the next place. They won't wait. Okay? If you do it in such a way that you have something that they really much prefer, get that right. And it could be, your client banter. It could be the way that you know the name of every person that comes in and you remember they have a cat or they have children, or that last week they had this great big celebration and how did it go? Did you chase that up? Those things count. Those things, knowing your clients' personal stories and enjoying them, it counts. And don't underestimate how much fun that can be. So those are the things that I particularly wanted to cover, and I have one last one that you may or may not have heard of. Bright lights, I call it. People are strange creatures, okay? They love being recognised and remembered. We all do, don't we? But the other thing that you'd be surprised is that we are actually attracted to light. Okay, so even if you are open during the day and only during the day, I would recommend that you have downlights in your front windows. They don't have to shine on the clients or the chairs and the tables, but just in the windows, so that from the street, the place is bright. and they can see it. And when they drive past, they're like, oh, geez, what was that? Okay? That is worth money. It's worth a lot of money because A, they know you're open. B, you're something interesting. And C, you've developed a bit of curiosity and attraction. Okay? The amount that it costs you to set up those bright lights, you can get the Vampire series where they just have the 2 strings and they have the little downlights, the little LEDs plugged into the wall. There are lots of ways you can do it. The cost of that is minimal. The potential for income is massive. Do not underestimate that at all, please. If you are struggling, look at your window. Go outside in the street and check it out. If you can't see how bright it is, it's not standing out from the neighbours, do something about it and watch what happens, because I wouldn't say it's guaranteed, but I'd certainly say you've just improved your chances substantially. That's all for me for now. I do hope if you do want your dream to come true with running your own cafe, you take note of these ideas. These come from cold hard experience, watching the sadness of failure and knowing that if these things had just been taken care of, there would have been a chance. It's Louise Bloomfield. I specialise in this area and I'm a tax agent. Thank you.